Welcome back to Market Makers, the podcast where we explore the people, strategies, and ideas shaping the future of real estate and business. Today, we're tackling a topic that impacts every professional, regardless of title, industry, or stage of career. How to take ownership of your future in a world that's changing faster than ever. AI is transforming the way we work. Companies are consolidating, roles are evolving in real time, and the traditional playbook of working hard, keeping your head down, and waiting for the next opportunity is quickly becoming obsolete. The reality is simple: the age of the passive career is over. In this episode, we're joined by Lisa Nickerson, CEO of Infinityy and founder of Nickerson, to discuss what it means to be the CEO of your career. We dive into the mindset, habits, relationships, and leadership skills that separate people who thrive during times of disruption from those who get left behind. Whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or an executive leader, this conversation will challenge you to think differently about growth, ambition, networking, curiosity, and the role you play in creating your own opportunities. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Market Makers podcast for the episode of Be the CEO of Your Career or Be Managed Out of It. We are here with Lisa Nickerson, CEO of Infinityy. Welcome, Lisa.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So right now, industries are consolidating. AI is rewriting job descriptions in real time, and roles that didn't exist 3 years ago now. So right now, employees are having to deliberately create value every single moment of the day. So what we're going to talk about today is nobody is coming to save your career. This episode is about taking full ownership of it with a CEO mindset, a clear framework, and the clarity to lead yourself forward in one of the most disruptive times in business history. So you're going to hear from all of us on our journeys, unique and different, and how we thrive and not only survive in our careers. But Lisa, excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Sure. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Just adding to what you just said, I want people to think about this from the get-go of this podcast. The age of the passive career is
Yep.
over.
Yeah.
We think about it as disruption and negativity, but it's really about having a very purposeful, intentional career where you're leaning into your curiosity and you're enhancing everything that you do. And when you think about it from that perspective, it makes it a little easier and a little more fun and exciting.
It does.
Super happy to be here. Lisa Nickerson. I'm the CEO of Infinityy. And I've also been the CEO of a marketing and public relations agency called Nickerson for the past 23 years. Started my career in real estate actually in college as a rental agent in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and working with students to find their apartments as well as home here and there. That was always exciting. Moved into commercial brokerage for most of my 20s before I started the agency. And so I feel like I've had a full circle moment coming back into property technology now and being able to serve the real estate industry with the latest and greatest in technology. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome. All right. Let's kick off with the first question. Shante, I'm going to let you start.
Great. So McKinsey says 70% of professionals feel unprepared for the future of work. Yes. Fewer than 30% actually have a plan. So when you look at the leaders you work with across SaaS and high growth organizations, does that stat surprise you or does it confirm what you're already seeing?
I think that stat speaks a little bit more to the general public than I would say the startup high growth world where we're always leaning into making something better, making changes, iterating as quickly as we can. We know that our jobs months from now will be different than they are now. And so I think that the people that are in the high growth area are really leaned into that type of change and looking for ways to always be better. I think that back to the passive career idea, historically people would continue to get better and better and more senior in their jobs. They didn't necessarily have to learn the new as much as be subject matter experts in their space. And so I think that's where the disconnect really is where people go as experts if their job is changing from beneath them.
For sure. I think you could bring up a good point because like most of the times when we were looking at the WEF, like Future of Jobs report,
Sure.
and how you have like 88% of global employees expect
Mhm.
that AI is going to fundamentally transform all businesses by the end of 2028.
Mhm.
So when we're looking at that, but the interesting part of it is more employees
Mhm.
overall, you look at a Gallup survey,
Sure.
are disengaged more than they have ever been in the past 10 years, like in
Mhm.
terms of satisfaction of work, a sense of a
Right.
belonging, so forth. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think again, you've got this convergence of two different cultural shifts, right?
Yeah.
If we had come in with AI at a time when people were super excited about work and there was more the work hustle and how can I always try and, go up in my career, I'm thinking like back to what 80s, 90s type
Yeah.
mentality, right? Then they might have embraced this a little bit more, but we've become a little bit different in the past decade of expecting more from that employer. I also saw the statistic related to people feeling like they weren't getting the training they needed from
Yeah.
their employer. And candidly, when I was coming up in the ranks, we didn't have that. If our employer was paying for something or giving us training, that was great. But really, it was about going out on your own and how much could you learn and how much could you upskill on your own outside of work so that you could position yourself for those types of promotions or additional work and responsibility. And so I think we're having a turn back to that too, where you need to work on your own personal brand and who you are within your organization and find ways to upskill yourself. And I think so the cultural change of that along with the fact that AI is changing how we do things is just it's converging at the same time and you're going to see people weeded out much more quickly than in the past in what could be very positive or very negative ways depending on the choice that you make.
I think you bring up a good point because I think people need to basically flip the script of
Mhm.
the traditional career, right? So
Sure.
you
Sure.
need to look at optimizing for role alignment as
Mhm.
well, and what basically versus just compensation, optics, everything else.
Yeah.
And like, what do you know? Like, basically taking kind of a hard look at yourself and understanding what lights you up at the end of the day. What are the 10 things that you love doing
Mhm.
and the 10 things that you hate doing? And basically, almost what I'm seeing a lot more of is people going into companies and forming their own roles based on their solutions that they can provide of their company, right? And what
Sure.
they are great at, and
Sure.
understanding that company and being like, here's what you need. Here's the problem that I can solve for you, and
Mhm.
formulating their own roles, especially high achievers, versus going in and being like, okay, I'm going to apply for this role and I'm only going to be in this box and I'm going to do this from 9 to 5 every single day. That's what
Well,
I'm saying.
Lauren, I would love nothing more than if that's how people operated all of the time because it would
Yeah.
make my job as a CEO a lot
No, it
easier. But
would.
I'm gonna go back to traditionally, you waited for your manager to promote you. You
Yeah.
waited for somebody to recognize you. And I think that again, that cultural shift is that how are you showing up every day in a way where you're able to say, not only did I did this and check a box, but I was able to move this needle forward. I was able to increase revenue, increase growth,
Yeah.
decrease expenses. And this is how they aligned with what the goals of my division or my company are. And the more that you can set yourself up for that success, the more you will be recognized. Again, back to this cultural shift of not waiting for somebody to just promote you or not waiting for somebody to spoon feed you some
Yeah.
training, right? The people that are really moving ahead right now are intentional. They're building that brand within their own organization and they're coming prepared with something else that is outside of what they're being dished up every day.
Yeah.
I
We
wonder
all
how
want
much
more
of
of those
that.
solutioners. We want someone coming to us with,
No,
with
I agree with you.
solutions.
Yeah, I think especially in the age of consolidation and the fact that there
Mhm.
are so many businesses that are, margins are super thin, especially in real estate. And so that puts stress on benefit packages, that puts stress on a lot of different things. I think, part of what I've seen in managing my teams is that there is definitely a difference in generation. And I
Mhm.
think the younger generation that are coming up now, they pick up on who their manager is. And, hopefully they have some kind of OKR that they're trying to achieve. And then
Mhm.
using data, to your point, Lisa, to talk about how they've been successful as opposed to a lot of like the busy work. Like, oh, well, I got this done, I got that done, and I got this done. Well, like, who
Check
cares?
the
What
box.
did it do? Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't care about a checked box as leaders. And we want people who are coming to us and helping us do our jobs in a
Right.
way, number one, trust so that, we can focus on the bigger picture, but also um, where it feels like you have someone who is bringing you not a bunch of problems or feedback. It's more about like, okay, I'm seeing this challenge. This is a solution that I have. Asking
Mhm.
for those stretch opportunities. I
Sure.
think one thing that I can tell right away as a leader who is innately curious and who
Mhm.
is just there for the ride and there for a paycheck and
Mhm.
they expect the world. And it might be tough. I have a tendency for the people on my team to like not necessarily coddle them, but I care about their career. I care about like where
No, you never
they
about
want to go,
her.
right? Like I will absolutely advocate for my team.
Mhm.
But if you don't come to the table with some sort of curiosity, can't only engage as much like if you're giving 80%, I will give you 100%. If you're showing up with 60%, I'm going to give you 75%. Like I can't do the 100% for people who are not truly thinking about how to help push the business forward and taking it as an opportunity and being in a way grateful. So I wonder if that is something that you also see.
I definitely wanna speak to that. If you're coming to the table with 70%, you don't stay.
Yeah.
Right? That just doesn't get the ship into port,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's where people are not gonna be hanging around anymore if they're not doing their job. One of my favorite lines is, "Don't get ready, be ready."
Mm,
Right? What can you be doing to prepare yourself for those opportunities? We also don't expect people to be perfect. We expect
right.
people to just do what they promise, right? So deliver on the promise, not, on an overpromise or just tell us what we wanna hear. And I've found the most successful people on my team are the people who put their hand up and say, I'll take responsibility for that. I may not have all the answers. I'm going to come for questions. I'm going to seek solutions, but I'll take responsibility for it and I will get it over the line. And then that's again, that's a culture, is that those are the people who succeed. I think the people who don't want to lean into how can I be a high performer are the ones who really are going to fall off and not be prepared. I also want to add to this that during COVID, there was a long stretch of time where young young people, whether they were in college or just out of school, didn't have the opportunity to network. That didn't become part of what they did with work. And so now when we're encouraging them to go to conferences, go to events after work, go and learn, they don't want to do it. They're not comfortable doing it. They don't want to do it. They don't understand the importance of it. How about also future proofing your career by building relationships, by getting the information that the AI doesn't have? And that's sometimes showing up and running into Lauren and getting some scuttlebutt on something that you didn't know.
Mm.
Because the AI is only as good as the information we put into it. So the more you have information from other people that supports decisions and things that we may not have known, you're future proofing your own career. So again, it's this shift of mindset and thinking.
I think you bring up a really good point because, like, to both your points with Shantae, I 100% agree. Like, we have OKRs,
Mhm.
we have all that kind of stuff. But I will say to people, do not give me back your job. Otherwise,
That line, Lauren. I love that line.
do not give me back your job. I hired you for your expertise because
Mhm.
as leaders, we can't be the best at everything that we do. So
Right.
we hire people that can constantly elevate us to the next level based on their area of expertise. That's how you build
Yeah.
a team. But I think the other thing that us as leaders and as women especially is we always have to be learning and we always have to be earning. And if
Mhm.
we're not doing both within an organization, we have to understand, okay, have we outgrown that organization? Not that it is a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's just a key of our intuition telling us, okay, it may be time to take the next step if
Mhm.
those opportunities are not being offered. I agree with
Right.
both of you. Like I've always taken opportunities to educate myself, certifications, continuing education. I'm a
Mhm.
big person on that and I don't
Oh,
rely on organization to do that. But I also will say that people need to understand if you are giving more than you're receiving, whether
mhm.
that be compensation, stretch opportunities, whatever it is, learning, then you kind of need to take a hard look in the mirror and just be like, okay, I may need to make a decision.
Well, but with that also, I would say we could do a whole nother podcast on whether women are positioning themselves to be
Agree.
recognized in that way.
Agree.
Because I think a lot of women really do show up and over deliver And someone might not even recognize it or know it because
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't have the data to support it, right? So you could be working your tail off, but if the right people don't know it, then you're going to fall down in that way too. So how do we coach people, whether men or women,
Yeah.
to really be able to position themselves to be recognized, to not show up and say, I need more money because, right? But
Right.
really, I deserve a raise or I deserve compensation that meets this. And again, not just because that's what the market is saying, but because these are the things that I've done that have shown great growth in this company. And this is where I'm contributing in such a meaningful way. And the people who've come to me in that way, I can absolutely then it's a business decision that's making sense because CEOs need to think in facts, not feelings. So
Yes.
just provide them facts. And
Mhm.
then they can make a decision that's a factual based decision and it becomes a no-brainer.
And I think it's also one of these things where you need to understand what their top priorities are. You need to understand what the business goals are of the
Sure.
organization, and then you work backwards. And so for me, like coming up with my own OKRs and being like,
Right.
okay, this
Absolutely.
is what the OKRs are needed to do the business. And I'm going to track and I'm going to report to you on how we're doing. So that way they have an idea, but
Sure.
understanding like, then it's kind of like, as long as you're in tune with their growth plan and what they are, and that they see you as a true asset, you're good. I think where people get distracted is they go on shiny object syndrome where they're like, ooh, new technology, new product. I mean, we're
Right.
in product people. We see everything come out
Mhm.
where they're like, let's try something new. Let's do this. But does it add to your actual growth goals of where you want to be? And people get on the wrong trail and they think they're doing great when in reality they're on the wrong path.
I think the
Well,
other thing I would add
absolutely.
to that is in addition to knowing, like my advice would be, in addition to knowing what your manager or the CEO or the business as a whole needs and is prioritizing as far as goals, you
Mhm.
also need to know what your priority is. Like, is it more
Mhm.
money? Is it a learning opportunity? Is it
Yeah.
paying for you to go to a conference? Is there a class that you want to take or a certification that you want to take? Is it a
Mhm.
title? Because you're probably never going to get all of the things. So understanding that at some point it does become a bit of a negotiation and knowing, okay, what is my actual end goal so that you get something out of it that makes you feel motivated. I think sometimes people get demotivated because they're in a rut and they don't know
Mhm.
exactly what they want and they haven't even and I think there's also a culture or it's like really easy to it's so much easier to be negative than positive in anything in life. And I
Mhm.
think when you constantly play into this negativity, and if there's like one squeaky wheel on the team that's kind of poisoning the well, it's a lot easier to do that.
Sure.
Anytime I've felt this unease of like, should this be something that I'm like, should I get myself out of this situation? I put together a training manual for someone who would be taking my place. And often it shows me number one, like all the things that I'm doing. And number two, in a way, it helps re-energize me. And if it doesn't, then that's my clue that I'm not in the right place because I can't wait to give this training manual to someone else. But if I'm creating something and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, wait, I love that part of my job." It kinda
Mhm.
helps me reframe things and organize it in my brain so that I'm not being pulled in a million directions. I can stop and really think about, okay, like, what does light me up? To your point, Lisa, of like, what
Mhm.
do I love doing? What do I hate doing?
Mhm.
And framing it that way and of like, okay, I'm going to feel super motivated if this happens. And now
Mhm.
you have a whole map that you're bringing to the person who ultimately will make that decision for you.
I think one of the best exercises my business coach did with me was also doing a timeline of my life and thinking about where I wanted to be at certain points. And not every point in life is a good time to do certain things. And so when I sit down with my kids, all three of them are in their 20s. My youngest just graduated college. So
Oh,
again, my
congrats.
role as a mom is even in a different place, right? As far as whether it's encouragement and support, while also making sure they're out of the nest, right? And
Mhm.
with that, I'm saying this is a time that you can do X, Y, and Z because you don't have a family and you don't have a mortgage and you don't have key things in your life that are going to force you to make maybe different decisions in the future, right? None of them even have significant others. So right now, the world is your oyster. double down on it. Then if you think you're going to have a family between this time and this time, right? Think about where the constraints might be and where you need to be a little more stable, or where you might not be able to make changes or take particular risks. Now, because of the stage that I'm in, I'm actually able to make different decisions than I would have been able to make even 10 years ago, because of where I am in my life, because all of my kids are out of college, right? Because I'm in a stable marriage. Like, there's a lot of really good things where the stars aligned that I was able to do that. Yes, in some ways you can say I manifested it, but in others, it's really timing. And again, putting things into place so that when opportunities do arise, you can take them. So when you sit down again and be intentional about, all right, this is what I could realistically do. This is what I could realistically make happen right now based on my personal commitments, right? Then you can also be realistic about what you can do. You might say, okay, for the next 5 years, I'm doubling down in this company and taking advantage of every single opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Then in 5 years, something shifts in your life that you know you can make a different decision, or you could move, or you could, I don't know, be more flexible, whatever it is. But if you think with that sort of short-term intentional goal setting, that actually helps you to not think about like, where do I want to be in 20 years? Where could I be in 3? And that's different.
So I asking for a friend. How do you tamper that, especially for high performers? And by the way, I've been called a high performer. I don't
You are a high performer.
but I don't call myself a high performer.
Why? Hold on, let's stop right there.
Yeah, let's stop. Yes, you are.
I guess I don't feel the need to define it is like the first thing. But like, second of all, I also think that it would give me, there's then that expectation. And I also just I don't know. Lauren could unpack all of this for me probably better than I can.
You know
But
what that it tells me that you hang out with high performers. If you ask yourself, who are your 5 best friends? And you even show that they're the goats, right? And that you live on that goat mountain. I stole that from Coach, right?
And
you're not a high performer because you're hanging out with them all the time. And you're not.
But she also has this extremely calming, soothing presence, right? So that's also her personality. So
okay, well, so that's funny you should say that, because I get that a lot, that people think I'm calm or maybe a little bit more passive.
And I think I'm just calm, but
I'm consistently the duck, right? Like, I'm above water, I'm like la la la, and underneath, if you could see my feet, and like that's really like my brain's doing. So asking for a friend, how do you tamper that anxiety that you have as a high performer when you are like, this is my shot? Like, this is my career. This is like another baby that I have that I'm trying to cultivate and grow and take care of. And I really care about it. And there is a lot of self-identity in your career, some people. How do you tamper that anxiety when you're in a phase of life where you're like, I can't do it all? Like, what do you do with that? And what do you do with those people?
This is so relevant right now. Did you pick this?
This is relevant. This is relevant to me. I mean, it's relevant to everybody, right?
It's all 3 of us.
Brand new role, and I'm putting myself out there in a different way. And I'm thinking every day about the different things that I need to be responsible for and that I need to learn and how I need to show up. And this might sound like it's I don't have time for the anxiety. I absolutely move it into something else. I move it into a different piece of energy. I've talked a lot about triathlon training or getting involved in something where you're putting that energy into something else, because I look at it as like, when you get in a triathlon, once you jump in the water, you're swimming. That's what you're doing. When you start a marathon, you're going. For some people, I'll give another analogy. Once you're pregnant, you're going.
Yes.
And that baby's coming. So if you take that anxious energy and just move it and you shift it into action, then you stay in forward thinking. But this goes back to that. Who do you hang out with? If you hang out with people who are like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. And I've got those friends that are like, why are you doing this? I'm thinking about retirement. Oh, your life sounds so chaotic. Blah, 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 right? I've become allergic to that. And I am working so intentionally. I think that's my word of the year, to surround myself consistently by people who know how to move the rock uphill, but with ease, right? And if I hang out with the people where this is the norm, that, again, I say you don't feel like an overachiever because you're hanging with overachievers, right? So therefore, when you hang with those people and you spend time with them and you're just sharing ideating, whatever it is, solutions come versus the anxiety. I think that the anxiety builds when someone else might be putting their fears and their concerns on you. I do say, if you have a spouse who is influencing that on the regular, then maybe the spouse isn't the person that you have those deep conversations with as much as
Yeah.
you want to, if it's going to feed your anxiety. And you come to somebody who's anxious with the result or what your intention is and good planning, because I've seen that happen where it's people's spouses
Yeah.
that can derail them from a big opportunity because of their own fears or their own anxiety. So I truly believe in moving anxiety to energy
Yeah.
and surrounding yourself by people who are like, yeah, like, duh, of course you're going to do that. Right.
Yes.
Versus,
I think at this point, I've trained my friends, even if they are not let's say yes to everything.
yeah.
One of my closest friends and best mentors of my life always uses the phrase commit, then figure it out. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's kind of what I do, right? Like I am, last week was a great example. My son had a surgery, unexpectedly had to be admitted, stay
Mhm.
overnight in the hospital. I was with him. My husband was out of town. He was at a meeting, a meta conference. So like
Mhm.
it was a disaster. The next day, my daughters had a spring concert. I had client meetings, and you just figure it out. But I sometimes
Right.
think about like, putting any of my other friends in that situation. I think they would have had a mental breakdown. And so, in a way, it kind of like trains your mind to be like, okay, and then I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And while I'm holding the baby, I'm going to take the phone call. And then and you're learning how to balance all of it. But I think sometimes I try to tell myself, like, I say yes to so many things.
Sure.
And I think it comes from this place of like, what if this opportunity never comes back again?
Right.
I feel like I haven't trained myself yet well enough. And I have a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And I have not trained myself to be like, let me think about that.
Right. But let's go back to the don't get ready, be ready. How much in your life is already organized,
Yeah.
thought through, anticipated, right? So that when opportunities come or there's a shift in your schedule or an emergency, you're able to handle that because all four tires are on the car already, right? So you're
Yeah.
ready to go. I have to have my car fully charged at all times because what if I get a call and I got to be somewhere? I have an EV. If that EV is sitting with only 20 miles available on the battery, and I can't leave to go somewhere, right? That's a problem. So how much in your life are you stacking in a preparedness, for preparedness for anything that could go wrong so that if something does, you're ready. But also when something comes along that's amazing that you didn't expect, you're able to up and go. And
Yeah.
it's really that intentionally being prepared along the way.
And I also think you bring up a really good point is your circle gets smaller
Mhm.
with attention. Yeah. You have to surround yourself with people who honestly, and Shantae and I are good friends and she does this for me all the time, but like not only do they increase your energy and they are A players and all that kind of stuff, but they also call you out on your crap or
Right.
whatever if you're
Right.
wrong. And they will
Yes.
tell you flat out you're wrong and they make you better.
Mhm.
And I think that's huge. But I think your circle gets a lot smaller with attention.
Mhm.
And I believe that some people are meant to be in your life for a chapter.
Mhm.
Some
Sure.
It doesn't mean they add less value by any
Mhm.
means. People are only a chapter and some people are much longer than that.
Mhm.
And I think as high, and I agree with you because I sometimes, have the same thing like Shantae, where you're like, oh my God, this could be the next thing, or I need to do this, this, this. I'm always constantly busy. And I'm like, yeah, let's just throw on an MBA program on top of that, let's just do
Well,
that.
it's like, I'm finishing my final and I'm hopping on a plane right now because I have to go speak on a panel and I'm going to come back and I'm going to recruit a $35 billion agent. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Right. Because that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's also one of these things where people say this about me, and here's like my weakness is I don't tolerate crap. So I've been told like I have an intelligence bias. I like to be around people that don't deflate me, do not suck my energy. And I think that's kind of one of those things where we all have friends, we all have things that are going to go through hard times and we need to be there for them. But
Mhm.
they are constantly doing more taking than they
Mhm.
are giving, and you're noticing your mood spike from like happy to constantly down all the time, you're not their therapist. You may
Mhm.
need to evaluate that because you can't let anybody get in front of your goals of where you want to be. But speaking of that, I do want to ask you a question, Lisa, because this is going to get good as well. But so we talk about your network all the time.
Yeah.
And we talk about it being career equity, right? And how, but I
That,
think people do it completely wrong. And it drives me crazy because you and I, all three of us get the LinkedIn messages, all three of us get the phone calls, all three of us get pitched a lot of things every day, right? But I think what the problem is people only invest in it when they need something, right? And they don't understand that you need to constantly make these deposits into these relationships,
Sure.
right? So what is your, practice in terms of doing that? Because obviously, and being able to do it from a scalable option. I have my way, which I'll talk about really quick. So what I do is I typically leave text to voice messages, right? I will find out what somebody's doing and I will leave them and I'm not just going to call them up and say, how are they doing? I will look on LinkedIn. I will see if they did an acquisition. I will do whatever and just say, hey, thinking about you. Congrats on this. Let me know if you want to talk about this. And that's it. And it's 2 minutes. And I've left over 360 of them in the last 4 months. But all of them have said, great, I'm thinking of you. And it literally takes 6 minutes out of my day, 10 minutes research, right? But 6 minutes out of my day. That's what I'm doing. But I find everybody else just kind of uses it for the wrong reasons as far as network goes.
Even as far as LinkedIn and just getting LinkedIn invites with no context.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. Or you accept the invite and then they automatically want to schedule a meeting to sell you something. Oh, and they don't even know what you do.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now?
I'm not interested in buying finance SaaS right now.
There was somebody who I've known for 30 years, and I got a LinkedIn from, and they're best friends with my ex-husband. And I got an invite from them yesterday introducing themselves and could they schedule a meeting with me. And I screenshotted it to my ex-husband and said, hey, you might want to tell him that I'll work with you before I work with him. And it was just this funny joke, right? I said, clearly he has somebody else doing his LinkedIn. And that's really the downfall is that what about the relationships that you already have? And it's showing just such a lack of care. And the same thing when I get a LinkedIn from somebody, and I'll get a LinkedIn from somebody who might seem very interesting to me and I'll accept it. But then I always send them a message that says, thank you so much for including me in your network. I appreciate that you're reaching out. May I ask how you came across my profile? Even if it might be opposite, obvious. I want to know why and how might I most be helpful to you? I do it every single time. It's the exact same message. First of all, I can't believe how many people don't respond. I'm like, why did you connect with me? Number one. Number two, it's always interesting when they do. But what I really want is someone to send me a message why they, and not just, I think you'd be a valuable person in my network. Great. How about a reason? And so LinkedIn can be strong in that way if it's used thoughtfully. I do a really, I think, very good job of keeping track of information about people when I'm on calls with them. When you mention something, oh, it was my anniversary, oh, this with my son, such. I'll keep notes on that so that the next time I talk to you and I pull you up and it's in my Salesforce, which is like my brain, but it'll help me remember. The more I can put somewhere where I don't have to remember it, back to anxiety, the less I have to remember and I can know that I can draw from it. And then lastly, as far as any relationship, I work very hard to pay it forward. So I really do open myself up to my network to ask me for an introduction, ask me for my thoughts on something, or if I can be helpful. And those that's currency by itself. And so I will say to team members, it's not that I can just call somebody and they're going to help me do something. I probably did 3 things for them already. That call is a welcome call and they're really happy to help me with that. So thinking about your network, not as network, but relationship building. And it does take time and it does take effort. And back to strengths, it could be something that you're very good at in person. Or maybe you're not. Maybe it's scheduling a Zoom, or maybe you are just the person that shoots the text, right? But find a way to be intentional about it and then show that you care, show that you actually are paying attention. I just think that that's a big piece that people, again, they're missing that skill set. And you only get stronger at it by flexing that muscle and doing it more often. So
I have a
Yeah.
follow-up question to that, sticking on the LinkedIn thing. I feel like the trend in the last few years has been to be a little bit more open and personal with your life on LinkedIn. And I'm curious how open you are on your LinkedIn to give other people the opportunity to do the same thing for you and like stay in the loop on your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I do not think of LinkedIn as Facebook or Instagram. I
Yeah.
had this conversation with a 20 something just yesterday where I said, I know that that's how you live your life. Is that how you want to present yourself professionally? That's two different things because whether you like it or not, people judge what you choose to post. No one
Mhm.
posted that for you. This isn't like a public relations piece that you couldn't control, right? You are controlling every ounce of what goes on your social media. And if you want to be seen as professional and you want people to see your profile and equate you with something very specific, then stay on that, right? And don't veer too far off of it because somebody will get a different impression. So as far as personal life, I have shared the successes of my stepkids or my kids or my husband because that is my personal network that I'm proud of, but it's generally something career related,
Mhm.
right? Um, I might share something personal, but again, I tie it back to something that ties in with my personal brand. I'm not just putting up something about my dog or baby pictures of my children.
Yeah.
Like,
What if your dog did something really cool though?
okay,
There's a platform for
yeah,
that.
if
But
my dog
yes.
had a very cool, like, Infinity costume on and
Yeah.
we talked about brand building, I'd still pull it back and
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
relate it
yeah.
somehow to the brand, you
Yeah.
know? I posted on when my stepson and I did the triathlon in Texas and we had Infinity full tri suits on, right? You better believe those are on social media.
Absolutely.
You know, that to us, we felt like we were representing the brand with greatness, right? So I tie it back.
I love it.
I love this. I think it's no, I think there are people who stick with it with a professional
Mhm.
standpoint. Think there's people who literally push it a little too far where I'm like, I don't need to know that about you. I don't know you well enough, but I agree with you. But now we're going to go to some fun things. So we know that AI is eliminating some roles, right?
Sure.
As we see by all the layoffs,
Yeah.
Meta, obviously,
But
and
so did
many
computers,
others.
and so did the BlackBerry, and
Yep.
so
Everything else, right?
you
I
So did the
equate it
printing
like
press.
that's right. So did the
I
car.
yeah, I equate it like it was when we were going through like the internet. Nobody thinks about the internet anymore, right? Like during that time thing, we don't think about it as much. So it's kind of like,
Your age. So
but okay.
That's true.
So what?
right now, I think I've had so many different types of experiences that it's actually working very much in my favor right now.
I think it is like I think it's working in our favor.
When
No,
I
I
explained to my daughter that I had a 10-foot phone cord from my computer in my bedroom to the kitchen wall
Yeah.
phone in order to use AOL, her mind is
did
blown.
her
She
eyes
doesn't
like glaze
understand.
Yeah.
over? Did her
Yeah.
eyes like glaze over? Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think she literally said, "I'm confused." And I said, "Don't worry about it."
You're like, mommy's not going to try to explain to you right now. But okay. What do you think? This is going to be a group discussion because I know we're all going to have our opinions on this. What leadership functions do you think are at the most risk of being disrupted and which ones are going to become more valuable?
If you are the person doing the busy work, if you are the person doing administrative tasks
Yeah.
without having a human value to it, then your job will be eliminated.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
If you have but being human centric, right, is not going away and subject matter is not going away. AI is only as good as the gold you put in it to get the gold out, right? So thinking in those terms, even if you are an administrative assistant, what are you doing to support your team that AI cannot do?
Mm.
And you have to think about it on a more personal level, on a more personal touches, right? And in that way, how are you using AI to be really strong at what you do? But it's
Yeah.
another tool. And it would have been like saying, I'm not going to get a laptop because I love my typewriter, right? Instead, be the assistant who leans into the laptop and knows how to run that laptop better than anybody else in that company, right?
Yeah.
If you become that person whose job would have been eliminated, but you become the very best at something that helps the rest of the team, that's how you are now supporting administratively your team. And the same thing with busy work. I think a lot of people have been able to hide behind busy work. If you hide behind busy work, you're not going to have a job because AI does the busy work.
AI can do that.
Where you need to lean into is that subject matter expertise that's better than anybody else. Now, take all that time that you would spend doing the administrative tasks, even if you were more senior, you still had administrative tasks of sorts, right? How can you use that time to lean into curiosity, be so much smarter, more knowledgeable, better, have information that when you do use the AI, it's that much better and that much more effective for you. So,
Yeah.
again, it's the framing.
I think it's
Lisa?
also for those people who are in there. Number one, I think like a key thing that we've talked about is obviously curiosity and agility
Mhm.
throughout this entire thing, right? And then also perseverance and going for what you want and not taking no as an answer. But what I will see is a lot of middle management. And what I mean by that, who are people managers, but don't add to the outcome.
Sure.
So all they're doing is managing the people, but they do not bring the strategy, the execution to
Mhm.
execute what needs to be of that role.
Uh-huh.
Completely that if you're a leader and you need to be able to hire specialists to support the
Right.
overall outcome of the department. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is if you are not contributing to yourself with your own role within
Sure.
that team, I
Mhm.
think that's going to be seen as out because they're like, why do we need you? If you're not elevating, if you're not taking it to the next level, then why?
If you're people managing, you better be a damn good career coach now,
Mhm.
right? And how are you learning
Right.
more about strength-based training? How are you learning more about productivity? How are you leaning into being so positive and excited about these opportunities for the people that you manage? And then
Yeah.
really exuding that with like every pore that this is such an amazing opportunity for you to elevate in a way that you may not have even been able to 2, 3 years ago. You can leapfrog now greater than any time in history, right? So instead of thinking about it as being taken out at the knees, how are you looking at this as like, I could jump on a rocket that I couldn't have before because that's how it's working right now. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
This is how it's elevating me. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's those people managers have to become the greatest career coaches of all time. And
And
with
they,
that, will be invaluable because
yeah.
teams still have to perform, right?
Not
Yeah,
only do they have to perform, but it's your job to take them to the next level of their
right.
careers, right? Like
Uh,
that is,
It is not
but
your job to take them. It is your job to develop the opportunities for them.
right. And they decide whether or not to take it or not.
They gotta get on the
They
rocket.
got to get on it. And again, I think you have two types of people. You have people that it's a job,
Mhm,
have people that it's career, right? And nothing's good, bad, right, or wrong. But I think, for us, for example, we're looking into Lovable, okay, from an enterprise edition
mhm,
standpoint. So one of the tasks is going to be like, okay, for example, you have 2 weeks. I will give you parameters, but
mhm.
let's build something. I want you to build something in Lovable that you can use at your everyday that is going to help you execute on your OKRs of the business. It
Okay.
could be whatever you want, but here's your parameters.
Yeah.
See what they come back with, right? Because that's
Mhm,
what they need to do. And I find that AI is not scary. It can be overwhelming to people if you don't know how to use it. But
sure.
I think it's, kind of like that whole thing of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, even though I hate that comparison. I think it's just you need to take one step. I don't
Mhm,
care. Start in one platform,
right,
whether that be Claude, whether that be Chat, whether that be
mhm,
Gemini, I don't care. Just pick one.
I'm
Pick one.
curious to see. I mean, the reality is that no matter what the AI tool is that you're using, it takes management. It
mhm.
takes, it's not perfect. It's not perfect science. I'm very curious to see how quickly we get to a point where that having to manage and double check and fact check all the different things, like how quickly that goes away. I imagine it will be soon.
Mhm,
But for the most part, right now, especially the agentic AI, you have
mhm.
to keep going back and making sure that what you built is actually doing what you think it's doing.
No, that's so true. Yeah.
So, like, become that person who knows how to manage. So, I was just sitting in a workshop the other day of like how to build an entire business based off of
Mhm.
um, or like 75 to 90% agentic AI employees. And so if you have like become that person, you like create another employee for yourself if you're that middle manager that can
Right.
help you get those things done. I think
Mhm.
that would probably be my like biggest advice.
Yeah.
To make sure that you're continuously also proving the point that, hey, you're going to need someone to make sure that this is doing what you think it's doing. And so that still requires human capital.
Sure. Totally
Yeah.
agree. Totally agree. Yeah, the human's not going anywhere. We just need to adapt to where the greatest opportunities are.
Yeah.
Water's flowing right now. Water is flowing towards being experts in AI in various different ways. And I don't believe this is new. I think that when we created electricity, it changed the way we did an awful lot of things, right? And it
Mhm.
displaced an awful lot of jobs. And as time has marched forward, there's always something that's changing. And this is another opportunity. And so as culture catches on, and as particular, well, there's two sides. You can say the younger generation learning to think differently and do differently. And then for people that are more senior in their careers, thinking about how this is really an opportunity to shift in certain ways where we haven't had to in the past.
Yeah.
Once we hit a certain level of seniority, like tenure, right? We're tenured. I think again, the age of passive career is over. And so how can you take all that knowledge and turn it into something different though? Because having 30 years of experience in the industry is different than having 5. You can
Mhm.
be super smart. You can be super go-getter. You can be the most, ambitious person, but 30 years of experience is something you just don't have at 5. So how do we take all that experience and just channel that into something that's going to help me be even more ambitious and more ahead in some way? But it's reframing our thinking.
I'm a bit jealous of I if I were 24-year-old Shantae in this like time of the
Yeah.
world, I'm like, if that was an option, that would be like, it reminds me of like The Secret of My Success. They should really remake that with like an
Yeah.
AI version of the world because
Mhm.
really you can plop yourself. If you're curious enough and you prompt it a certain way,
Mhm.
there are a lot of things that you can learn and make sure that you know how to speak to it. I remember sitting, in my first roles where I got to sit in the boardroom and they would use all these acronyms and I would write every single acronym down in my notebook like furiously, like every single thing. It felt like they were speaking a different language and I don't even want to know how I first ever Googled EBITDA because I know for sure I did not spell it correctly, but I would write all these things down and then I would go back to my desk and I would like search all of them and be like, okay, now I understand what just happened in that meeting. Now it's so much easier from my perspective. But maybe that's also like, when you have the analog, you kind of understand the digital a little bit differently. And the kids now, like, all only have the digital. They don't have the analog that is like that true, really great, gritty experience. I
But
don't know.
Shante, I want to reframe this just a little bit because how many people would say, "Well, you didn't tell me what EBITDA was. You didn't tell me what those acronyms were. So how was
Yeah.
I supposed to do anything
Yeah.
with that?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that culture is gone, right? If that's how you show up, is that you didn't just use the Google, right? You
Mhm.
didn't just figure it out and step up to the sitting at that table and the privilege of sitting at that table in the first
Yeah.
place, then you're out. And so those are the people that I worry about is that if you're not sitting there and going, "Oh, I want to know what they meant. I want to know what they said," that's where the problems are going to be. But you
Yeah.
weren't that person. Lauren wasn't that person. I wasn't. We were always trying to lean in more and make sure that we understood what people were saying so that we could maintain that seat at the table.
So if
Yeah.
curiosity is the new baseline, though, the people who are those high performers, curious people, like how do they set themselves apart then?
I keep thinking about the goat mountain phrase of how do I always ask somebody at the highest level of what I'm doing. There are several CEOs that I call and that I joke that they can solve a problem with me in 20 minutes that I could spend hours with
Yeah.
somebody trying to work on. Hours with somebody on my team and we're trying to solve for this. And then I call this CEO who's done it and they never just tell you. They really walk you through the problem and help you frame it in a way that you're like, oh, and you realize you could click your heels and you had the answer all the time, but you just needed the yellow brick road to follow. right? But that's because I called that person. There's one person I call on 25-minute calls. That's all she'll give me. But when I do, God, she knew exactly how to move that rock, right? And it's amazing. And so I think if you want to continue to achieve at a certain level, you've got to always be calling an expert who's done it, who can speak to it, and who doesn't give you answers, but really helps you think it through so that you can get to those answers in the future by yourself. Always
And
learning.
I think it's also like recognizing what you don't know and not being
Sure.
afraid to ask, but also like you said, like paying it back with value. I mean, I make calls to people in my network who are CEOs and everything like that. I'm like, I do not know the answer. I need help. And they'll give it to me straight. And kind of like, it's also like you said, Lisa, maximizing your time and understanding like, oh,
Yeah.
this is gonna take me 4 hours. If I call somebody else and it's going to take me 20 minutes, that's a better use of my time. So I think
Sure.
that's too.
And
Yeah.
smarter, not, it's answers to the test, right? It's thinking you and learning their process for how they get there. They use those ratios, this, they look at this, hadn't thought about that because I haven't been in this seat before, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes even the process of just knowing, like, oh, I put my sneakers on before I run. That's a really good idea, right? Like, but I didn't know it. I said to my daughter today, too. Again, she just graduated. I said, the most senior people that I work with clarify a question all the time. They clarify an answer all the time. They want to ensure that they know what they heard and they'll repeat it back or they'll clarify the question, right? It's the junior people that never ask clarifying questions and they don't repeat back what they heard. They'll go, okay, because they don't want to appear stupid or they don't want to look like they're asking a dumb question. And then they'll go do all this work that could be in the wrong direction and not what you asked for, or not even do what you asked for. And they're confused as to how this happened, right? It's the most senior people don't worry about looking dumb. And they don't phrase, oh, this is a dumb question. Just say, I'd like to clarify that. May I ask this? And just ask with a level of sophistication of that you just want to do a great job. And so again, just leaning into being clear in what you're trying to do. The more you do this, it's habit forming in everything in your life. So, and Lauren, you were talking about friends and we could talk about work. I think it all goes back to boundaries too, right?
Yep.
Who you're managing, what you're accepting, what you're allowing, what is your job to train further or to say maybe they're just not the right person for the team.
Exactly.
These are the most important things. We put the right butt in the right seat. And if they're not, then we make a choice to make it change. It's not
Yep.
personal, right?
Yeah. I agree with you.
I know we are way over than what we had originally scheduled before. Should
Are
we
you
do
going to ask
our
your fun questions?
You could interview me and not expect that.
thing? I just want to make sure you're okay on time. I find this
I have
fascinating.
something in 15 minutes. I've got
Yeah.
11:30.
Okay. All right.
My
So,
laptop's on East Coast time, actually,
oh,
clearly.
okay. Yeah. All right. So all right. So if you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
10 years ago. Oof.
Is this for both of us?
It's for all of us.
It's like, is this this is the wild card? By the way, I never know what these are. She
Yeah.
just like throws these in here and
Yeah.
she throws me off every single time. Okay.
This one's meant to be a little bit more deep and thoughtful and less frou-frou.
I wish that I'd had the timeline that Johnny Johnson, my business coach, had helped me lay out to understand that what I was doing in that time and for those reasons was for that time and not trying to figure out where I was going, what I was doing, and how I was going to get there in in my head, a little bit more of a chaotic way. Right. But if I'd known that from this time in your life to this time in your life, this is this chapter, and then you'll have this opportunity in this chapter and been able to break it out and see it more clearly, that I think would have helped me be more intentional in some of the choices that I was making and how I was looking at my career. So actually, if the number one takeaway is to make sure you have a business coach, I have a CEO coach, I have a business coach. I've had a life coach at one point, and these people help you think something through. It's not talk therapy. They're helping you get to a goal and think it through and get there on your own. And I think that's the most valuable lesson I've ever had. And I did do that 10 years ago, well, 12 years ago now. It changed my life.
I
So,
loved having an executive coach. I don't have one currently, but I found it so impactful. And I think it also helped me connect the dots of the way I was raised, the things that I've gone through in my life, and connecting that to my career of like how
yeah,
I respond to certain situations, how I choose what I say yes to and why I typically am like, go, 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 go. And so I find that for anyone who is like on the fence, I 100% agree. I think it's something that if you find the right person that you feel comfortable with sharing, I
Yep.
think these dots, it ends up making a lot of sense. And it ended up spilling into my personal life too, where I
Totally.
understood why I was feeling the way I was feeling, or, instead of shutting down, now I know how to communicate like what's going on, instead of throwing myself into work because I'm stressed about something. Like now I know how to talk about it.
We could do a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
on the convinced. I am convinced I would not be with my husband right now if I had not gone through that work to understand why I made the choices that I would make and how I would react or respond to different things. And once I did that work, it allowed me to be in a different place and to be in a great relationship. I became a better mother and I certainly became a better leader. So, really, really important work to do. Lauren, what about you?
Oh my goodness. So I feel like the past 10 years, I wouldn't be where I was, like, had I not gone through like some of the obstacles of that.
Sure.
There was one really defining moment for me where I had a CEO and at a major advertising firm that I was working at. And this is where I learned to kind of fight for my career. But he literally said three
Mhm.
things. He's like, you can do whatever you want. He's like,
Mhm.
you don't make money, don't go to jail. And he's like, stay pretty. In other words, don't gain weight. He's like, that otherwise I don't care what you do. That was my only meeting with him. And I was an
Yeah.
executive. That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I think what that taught me very early on, and what I wish I had known before, is the point of me not, number one, not taking the time to second guess any decision,
Mhm.
and two, being very bold on what I want and what I don't want, and being
Mhm.
vocal about that. So my tolerance for people or environments that I don't think are good in terms of taking your career to the next level, or
Mhm.
nurturing their people, I just don't tolerate anymore. But I took that experience to get to who I am. So I think it's molded me on the decisions that I make more than ever. But if before that, I wish I would have had that experience and that boldness to be able to do it. Before that, I was too worried about what other people thought of me. And it's not
Mhm.
that we're not, but we're more selective in terms of who
Mhm.
opinion we value on that and whose we don't.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that would,
There's the worrying about what everybody else thinks and then realizing that nobody else really cares.
nobody's like really paying attention about you. It's not about you.
That's a huge piece. And then the
Right.
other, you see people in analysis paralysis over decisions versus looking at a decision and knowing that if you don't like the outcome once you make it, you just make another decision and do something different. It's that
Yeah.
simple. There's no regret. I learned something from that. From every single decision that we make, we learn something and we make another decision. And again, it removes the anxiety and it takes it and moves it into action.
Yeah.
I agree. And it takes us into, sometimes doors are opened when we least expect it. And we
Mhm.
need those experiences to go through to have those doors opened. And it's
Sure.
a lot of times we have this. Shantae knows me very well. Lisa, you do now too. I like a roadmap. I like knowing what my future holds. Like, I like following boxes. But some of my best career highlights have come from something that did not go according to plan.
Yeah. Well, that's where you learn the most.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's where it's kinda like, okay, how are we going to add value? We're going to take this to the next level. Let's go.
Right. Right. And that becomes a high in itself, right?
Sure.
When you know you can do it. So you also need the opportunities where you can learn that those highs exist and learn that those opportunities are there. So when you see that door open, you know to walk through it.
Yeah.
Again, not everybody always sees the door and says, "Oh wow, that door is open for me."
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I love today's podcast. Thank you, Lisa, for coming on. It was
thank you.
fantastic. And I know that our team got clarity on how to lead themselves forward in their career, and tips and tricks from us and what to
Yeah.
do. But the episode will be dropping soon. So stay tuned.
And I think it's important to know that they can reach out to us too,
Yeah.
right? Not
Yeah.
like we have all the answers. We're still learning. And I'd love to hear from people of not only what they thought about the podcast, but other ideas that they have for success or,
Yeah.
landmines to avoid.
Yeah.
So
What's the best place to follow you, Lisa?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my love language.
Okay.
I
That
love
is your love
it.
language.
That is my love language. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
We will
All
do
right.
that.
Well, thank you so much. It was nice spending time together today.
You
Yep.
too. Chat soon.